This episode contains material that might be triggering for some. If you need to stop the podcast at any time to take care of yourself, please do so.
If you need support, you can call the 24/7 National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-8255. Dialectical behavior therapy was created in the 1980s by Marsha Linehan in Seattle, Washington.
Today, DBT is taught all over the world.
We're two therapists who believe everyone can benefit from DBT skills.
I'm Kate.
I'm Michelle.
And this is DBT and Me.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, guys.
And today we're in Q&A number 24.
Yeah, mid-20s. Woohoo.
No. Actually, that makes me think, aren't we in the mid-90s for total episodes? It'd be interesting to try and figure out what percentage of the episodes we put out.
Getting close to 100.
Right?
We're almost there, yeah.
90-something. Anyway, it'd be funny to see what percentage of the things we put out would be Q&As. That's going to be going up now that we're only at monthly episodes.
That's very true, yeah. Good point.
But, yeah, so this is number 24. The only thing I would say as a preface, because maybe Michelle was going to mention it, but maybe not, is in this first thing that the listener wrote in on, it references August, and at a moment I was like, oh God, but Michelle reassures me that we already individually communicated back to the person who wrote us this. So we're not belatedly giving some helpful tips.
Yeah.
This is just so other people might benefit from the same ideas.
Exactly. Yes.
So anyway, I don't know. For me personally, when I was reading that, I was like, oh shit, it's almost the end of August.
No, pretty much if you do email, I mean, whether you email or whether you post in the Facebook group, one of us will reply back to you just because we know it's taking so long to answer questions in Q&A episodes. So yeah, this listener, we did respond to her, but like Kate said, other people might be able to relate. So
right. Yeah. Well, you're on it, so you get to read the first one.
I am, yeah, and it's quite long. We did condense here and there, but felt important to read. So this listener says, hello, Michelle and Kate. Thanks for your podcast. I'm working my way through all the episodes and find your dialogue on aspects of DBT really helpful in my situation, which is being the mother of a 15-year-old who has been prescribed DBT. She's now waiting in a queue for a place in a DBT program, and we have been told it is unlikely that she'll, and us too, be able to start before August. In the meantime, she is struggling enormously. I am reading books and listening to your podcast and feel I'm getting a grip on the basics, but today we are faced with a new situation, and that is why I am writing. Over the past week, our daughter has sunk into a deep, dark place. She only went to school one day and otherwise stayed in her room all day unless we left the house. She says quite openly that she doesn't like her family, my husband and I and her sister, and doesn't like us being around her. Today, I did not see her until 4 p.m. when she came storming out of her room saying she had to get rid of her bed. Her dad and I asked why and received no answer. Our daughter absolutely refuses to discuss this, or really anything, with us, but she is violently and desperately unhappy. Her bed is now in our hall, and she has pumped up the air mattress to sleep on. It all feels quite mad, and my husband and I feel powerless to help her when she pushes us away whenever we try to talk. We have backed off while saying that we are always here to help her if she wants. Dialectical thinking, I hope. But it doesn't feel like it's enough. What can we do to bring the temperature down? I myself have learned about TIP and have tried to help her by suggesting she splash her face with cold water or do the short spurt of intense exercise. But to be honest, given that she rejects my support consistently, I am concerned that if I keep suggesting methods from DBT, she might reject DBT when she eventually gets a place, because she recognizes it will be from me and she's hell-bent on separating herself from me. This normal teenage process is turned up to 100 with her. Her doctor describes her condition as like fighting a war and only using nuclear weapons. That, I thought, described her very well. It is heartbreaking to see her suffer, feel her distress and anger, and just passively stand to one side, waiting for her to talk to me. How can my husband and I best help her? Hoping for concrete tips to get us through until she and we start DBT.
Oh, that sounds so hard.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Like, I have a lot of sympathy for this listener because, I don't know, I think one of the hardest places to feel powerless is in a parent relationship, right? When you have that child that you want to help so badly and don't know how to. So, first of all, just a lot of sympathy going out to her. And also just understanding this, I don't know, trepidation that she has about like, woo, if I shove too much DBT in her direction,
Yeah.
maybe she'll reject it just because it's coming from me, because I can definitely see that even in a normal teenager, let alone, as you said, a teenager going through teenagehood at 100 instead of, within more normal parameters. That all being said, I feel relatively out of my depth on helping this listener. I have not worked with teenagers at all. The only teenagers I'm at all intimately familiar with are my own nephews. And so mostly, Michelle, I have to admit, I'm going to pass the torch to you on this one. I think your help or your experience working in that group home is going to be really applicable here. So I'm going to pass it to you.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because reading this did make me think back to the time when when I worked at the group home, and I was like, because we had girls do, I don't know, just similar things that were really odd and hard to understand. They would want to, I don't know, try to barricade themselves in their room or refuse to go to their room or only certain meals or just various things that we couldn't really understand why exactly. Just one day things would seem okay and then the next day things wouldn't, and they would not talk to us, right? Which this listener says we try to be like, help us understand what's going on, what do you need? Nope, they're not interested in that. So it's so hard. And again, this listener and I did email back and forth a little bit specifically about this, but kind of some general rules of thumb. I am of the belief that throughout our lifespan, we all can throw tantrums. Doesn't matter how old we get, whether we're in a 3-year-old body or a 53-year-old body, we can all throw tantrums. And that's kind of what it overall sounded to me like the daughter is doing. I don't want to downplay or discount what may be underlying this. What may be underlying this is some pretty significant depression, it sounds like. Yeah, that's concerning. And also behaviors like this of like, I'm going to pull my bed out into the hallway and refuse to sleep on it and things like that. Those are tantrum-like behaviors. She's having some kind of a reaction come up. A lot of times because we're wanting to, she's wanting, or we're wanting, I say, like kind of the general we, when we're throwing tantrums, we want to get some kind of a response from the people around us. And again, a lot of times, especially if you are trying, and it really sounds like this listener, was really trying to be like, I'm here for you. I want to help you. And they're not accepting those offers of help. Sometimes the tantrum just needs to run its course. And that's really hard to do when it's a teenager or an adult. And I call things like this sometimes, like the term is protest behaviors. There's something going on in her life that she's unhappy with, she doesn't like, may have nothing to do with you, though you're on the receiving end because you live with her. And all of these things will not get her needs really met. It just won't. I would see this sometimes at the group home where like the girls would say, I don't know, someone would have a really bad day at school and get in a fight with a friend. Then they'd come home and refuse to shower. Well, refusing to shower isn't going to do anything about the fact that you had a fight with a friend. Those are unrelated things, but sometimes actions like this, behaviors like this come up because they're so flooded or overwhelmed with that situation at hand that it's not always rational. They're just protesting and trying to fight or have control over something. So even though behaviors like this are alarming, here's the good news in this case. Doesn't sound like anything she's doing is dangerous. Now, we do really want to be mindful of a couple of things where you might be wanting to try to take steps to get her hospitalized, right? Sometimes the way that people throw tantrums or have protest behaviors is by refusing to eat. If somebody has gone more than 24 hours without consuming a meal and they are refusing to eat, that's a concern. That's when you might want to get some medical attention going on, because you don't want that person to be getting dehydrated or, going days on end without consuming food. That can be dangerous. Of course, if she's self-harming in a way that could really cause some serious bodily harm, those are protest behaviors we really don't want to mess around with in terms of intervening. Otherwise, things like, I'm not going to shower. Again, the going to school one's really hard because you do need to go to school. And also, not going to school isn't dangerous. There's going to be some consequences that come from that within the school system that she would have to face. If you've tried everything you can to get her to school and teachers are trying and you're communicating with them, there will be a consequence for that, but luckily not going to school is not dangerous. Again, like I said, putting the bed in the hall, it's not dangerous. Not showering, it's not dangerous. So sometimes it's really hard to kind of, I guess if I had to assign a DBT skill to it, like kind of ride the wave with some of these tantrums. It's not easy. And also what I saw when I worked at the group home, they do run their course. Sometimes a girl would throw a tantrum for a week, but it would end. One way or another, it would end. And again, as long as it wasn't behaviors where she was physically harming herself or someone else, we would again try to, set up consequences if it made sense. But for the most part, we would really try to ignore. It's like, okay, you don't want to come out of your room to watch the movie with the rest of us. You just want to barricade yourself in here and, you're coming out for meals. Okay, good. But basically you want to wear the same clothes for 3 days straight. Yeah, like.
Ooh, there you go. Radical acceptance. That I guess could also be another DBT skill as long as it's not dangerous.
Yeah, a little bit.
This is where we are right now.
Yeah. And again, I think it is always great to try to approach it first by saying, hey, I want to help you. What can I do? Yeah. I can tell you're really upset. Like, try to engage. And you can try periodically throughout the course of the tantrum. And also recognize that there are going to be some protest behaviors that, like, you consistently, like, pushing back and trying to fight and convince them. It's not going to work. Again, you can try to implement some consequences. But sometimes it's best to really just try to ignore it and let it run its course when you've already tried to engage and that's not working. So that's what I say. And like I said, I know that feels terrible in the moment because it's like, but I'm worried about her. Of course you're worried. And again, alarming, but not dangerous. That's the distinction. If it's not dangerous, let her kind of work through whatever she's working through. So
kind of risk assessment E.
It is a little bit. Yeah, yep. Definitely. So this stuff is hard though. It's not easy.
It's hard. No.
Yeah.
I mean, thankfully my sister's kids aren't struggling really with mental health issues, and even then just teenageness is difficult. So
yeah, because you'll get this where they're like, I'm not coming out of my room.
Yep.
Like, well, what are you gonna do?
Yeah, exactly.
There's not much you can do when they become teenagers in bigger bodies and that kind of a thing. It's it's really hard. And sometimes when we stop fighting it, when we're just like, okay, hopefully see you for dinner. You want me to bring you a plate up here of dinner? Like, whatever. I don't know. If you just kind of stop resisting, then sometimes they stop fighting so hard.
Yeah, sometimes the behavior reduces just because she's trying to butt heads.
Yeah, sometimes that butting of heads adds fuel to the fire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, on to the second thing.
Yep.
This one reads, can someone help me with some direction? I have borderline personality disorder and huge issues with abandonment. Perceived abandonment is my biggest trigger. I have 3 close friends, and all of them are simultaneously going through busy points of their lives, meaning our communication has been sparse. And I am feeling abandoned. Like, suddenly I have lost everyone. I'm trying to cope because I know that isn't the truth, but it is what I feel, and the last 2 days I have been fantasizing about what I can do to regain their attention. This is my typical behavior.
Yeah, I actually just realized this hearing you reread it, Kate, but it made me think back to when we recorded our episode where we went through the criteria for BPD, and we named the skills that corresponded to each one, and now I'm like, what skills did we say for
fears of abandonment?
Yeah, I'm like, which skills did we say for that specifically? Because that could be
I bet check the facts was in there.
That's what I was gonna say. Because that's where my brain went initially reading this. Like, the first skill I thought of was check the facts, but then when I really read what this listener wrote, hey, guess what, listener? You are checking the facts. I hear it, like, throughout what you posted. Because, they say right here, I know that isn't the truth. Yep. But this is what I feel, right?
Yeah, good dialectical thinking, too.
Totally. Yeah.
Right? So I feel abandoned even though I know that I'm not.
Yes, exactly. They're going through busy points of their lives. Like, you're already checking the facts in what you wrote. So I was like, okay, I'm not going to say that because they're already doing that. So that's great. Here's the other thing that's great is that you're catching yourself and reaching out for support when you're saying things like, I've been fantasizing about what I can do to regain their attention, and this is my typical behavior. So you're seeing that you've been in this place before with other people. This is your typical response, and you're wanting to change it. So these are big strengths already going for you. So you may already know what I'm about to say, but it feels worth saying for others who might find themselves in this boat, is that this is so common when people are doing things we don't like, just across the board, is that we really start trying to think on what can I do to get the response from them that I want? What can I do to get them to change? Whatever it is that you're wanting to change. In this case, what can I do to get them to pay attention to me again? And, it rarely works when we're putting the focus on other people and trying to change their behavior.
Yep.
We just wind up disappointed a lot of the times where it's like, ooh, if I do X, then they will respond by doing Y. No, not always. But like I said, good news is it sounds like you're catching yourself. You're thinking about these things, but you're not doing these things. So that's really great. Kate's about to talk about like some things that you can do really on your own to kind of manage all of this stuff that's coming up for you around abandonment. But I will say that what you can control is if, how, and when you decide to communicate with them about this. And we don't know what their response will be, right? Because we can't control other people's responses. But this might be a great thing to Dear Man. To be able to go to these friends and to use some of that Dear Man stuff to make a request to see each other soon. You could say, I'm trying to, again, this is totally made up, but it could be something like, hey, I realize we haven't seen each other in 3 months. I've been really feeling lonely lately. I'd love for us to set up a time to get together within the next couple weeks. I think it would just be really great to see each other again, and I think we'd have fun if we got together. Ta-da! You just did Your Man. So that may be the route to go. Is to, and you can acknowledge too, right? As part of Dear Man, you could add in something that says, I know you have told me that you've been really busy lately. You can add that in there. That could totally be part of the D with describing the situation. And you can still express that this is something you'd really like when they do have some time. And that might be part of the negotiating, right? The end part, based off of what they say. But yeah, I think Dear Man could be really helpful to just let them know how you're feeling and let them know what you would like, regardless of what their response is. That's one of the skills that I would recommend going to.
That's a good one. And looking at my notes, I realized that I was just praising them for dialectical thinking, and then the first thing I was suggesting was dialectical thinking, which I think is entertaining. But
yeah,
so I guess instead of a suggestion, it's a keep on.
Mm-hmm.
Right? This idea of validating the feeling while simultaneously embracing that it's not factually true, right?
Yeah.
The things that you're having a response to, which is really hard and probably bears a lot of repetition, right? You probably not something you're going to be like, yep, I have that dialectical thought, check, and then be done with it forever and ever, amen. I suspect that that's something that will keep coming up as you keep having that emotional response. So quite literally, keep up the good work with the dialectical thinking.
Mm-hmm.
You'll probably have to keep it up for a bit, especially if that's one of your biggest triggers, right? That means it's going to be, there's a lot of emotional load there to be balancing. So the next thing I was thinking about is those action urges, right? The things you've been fantasizing about doing. And how to continue to, I guess, win the struggle against those behaviors. The first thing I think about is accepts, right? I love me some good distraction. When when my brain wants to focus in on something that I know isn't healthy for me, isn't helping, the action that it wants me to take is not a good idea. Then, accepts is really a go-to thing there, whether that be just the activities or a thoughts thing, right? There's so many different opportunities in that one acronym to get your brain a little off track for once, right? Instead of trying to get on track, we'd like to get you off that track. And then the other thing that came up for me was the idea of ride the wave, right? If you're really having, an upwelling, a strong surge of that urge, right, to do whatever thing you've been thinking you might do to regain their attention, right, using good new word, Kate, using ride the wave to help yourself get through and over the crest of that intense urge, if it ever really dials up for you like that. And then the last thing, and this kind of comes up-ish with the Dear Man, but it could look different as well, either separately or, a different part of the same conversation is, if these are, you said 3 close friends, right? That seems to me to indicate they probably know you pretty well. Maybe they even know that you have this trigger. They know that this is something you struggle with sort of conceptually. And so I wonder if you could reach out to them pretty honestly with your struggle, right? So text message or in person or whatever, but send a, hey, I know that you aren't abandoning me. Let me put that out there up front. Mm-hmm. But I'm feeling really triggered on an arena because of how busy you've been lately. So I just wanted to let you know where I am with that. If there is any chance that we could see each other or communicate a little bit more often, that would be enormously helpful for me. And also, if that's not possible, please just, if I act weirdly or do something that seems out of line, try and keep in mind that this is the thing I've been struggling with, right? And we can work to repair whatever damage my action does or something like that. So yeah, I would say that if they really are your close friends, I'm really hoping for you that they're people where you can be safe about that vulnerability of just owning your struggle. And seeing if, sometimes, I don't know, there's busy and then there's too busy to help a friend in struggle. And maybe they're there. That's possible, but maybe they aren't. right? It's possible that if you are really vulnerable and upfront about this struggle with them, that they might go, I didn't know that this was hitting you this hard. I can make a little bit more space, right, in my day-to-day life for at least, like, I don't know, a text message conversation a day, right? Let's set a date, or hey, let's do one phone call a week. Right, where we can really sit down and talk, and we can schedule that, right? So it's not impromptu. I can get it on my calendar around the other things I'm busy with. Or, right, so by being open and honest and vulnerable with them, not only do you set them up to maybe better understand and interpret how you've been behaving or how you might behave in the future, but also that gives them the opportunity to make fully informed decisions, right? Maybe they already are, maybe they aren't. Maybe that would count as new information to them that would motivate them to have slightly different actions right now. And you don't know without putting it out there. So that would be the other thing I would suggest.
Yeah, totally. Okay, this next one says, other folks with borderline personality disorder, how do you cope with your anger/rage? Mine always seems to be completely irrational or straight up for no reason, and I'm really struggling. I've been trying breathing mostly, and it's not doing the trick.
Oof. I feel that one.
Yeah.
So the first thing I think about when I hear anybody, this listener included, talk about anger being there for no reason, right? I'm putting air quotes around no reason. I think of that as making it more likely, not a guarantee, but more likely that maybe there's something else being masked by that anger, right? Anger is, again, not always, but very often a secondary emotion, right? Anger is courageous, it's brave, it's energetic, it's protective, right? So if you're feeling really hurt, if you're feeling really alone, if you're feeling just something that's really vulnerable or tender,
Afraid.
Ooh, yes, big one, right? Then sometimes instead of feeling that emotion consciously, we'll just skip over into anger. Anger feels safer. Anger is easier. Anger is less vulnerable, right? And so the first thing I would say to this listener is just, could that anger be masking something else, right? Take some time and really sit with yourself. Try and be honest and open and vulnerable with yourself and be like, is there something in my life right now, that is hurting me, that's frightening me, that's right, that I might have these other emotions about it, but don't feel safe being in those emotions, don't feel safe expressing them, don't know how to, whatever, right? There's all sorts of reasons why anger might show up as a sort of cover emotion or as a substitute emotion for what's really going on. But anytime I hear the idea of, I have no idea what I'm angry, it's not pointed at anything, it's irrational, it's no reason, then I think, well, if there's no apparent reason to be angry, I bet you're angry because you're feeling something else. So that's the first thing I would think. And then the other one is, breathing is lovely if your anger is not very intense yet.
Yep.
Right? If you have a low, slow anger, maybe you can breathe your way through it, right? Help that release. Help yourself relax. On the other hand, if your anger is anywhere where rage seems like another appropriate way to label it, calm, slow stuff ain't gonna do nothing, right? Because anger is an action emotion, right? It is meant to drive you to do something, right? It is very much, the fight of the fighter, flight or freeze, right? It wants you to take action. So I would recommend things more active than just breathing. So maybe, in tip, either the, especially like the, where my brain just go, the intense exercise portion of tip, right? Something where you get your body moving, you get your heart rate up, you do a thing, right? You take action in some way, and that's much more likely to move you through the anger to a place where maybe the anger is down enough where breathing or self-soothing or right, other less intense coping mechanisms or coping skills might work better. So those are my two ideas. Is A, is it masking something else? And B, do things, be more active in how you're trying to cope with the anger and help it, subsume or subside. That's the word I want. Because anger wants action. And it can sometimes actually put our anger up if we try and do some of those slower, calmer kind of responses to it. So
yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, the two things that Kate just said are huge things that I think we both say with our clients a lot when it comes to anger, which is exactly that of like, what other emotion could there be in addition to the anger, and what can you do physically? Because I hear that a lot. I think we have some of these like outdated kind of ideas about how to cope with anger. Like, walk out of the room and count to 10. Okay. Like, that doesn't really cut it a lot of the time.
No.
Take 3 slow, deep breaths. Okay. Sometimes what I do recommend to people when it comes to the breathing, which this takes some nuance, I think, to find, but a lot of times I think people try to like sit and breathe. You don't have to sit and breathe, like you were just saying, Kate. It's kind of the sitting is counterintuitive to what the anger wants, but like, is there something that you can do physically, and can you be trying to take deep breaths at the same time? Perhaps that could help. Kate was also touching on this, which is really important, which is, a lot of anger management, if we want to use that term, is recognizing and intervening with the anger early. So knowing what it feels like in your body when it's very first starting. And a lot of times we tend to not notice our emotions until they get quite loud. Maybe we'll notice them a little bit when it's like a 2, 3, or a 4, but we're like, no big deal, I'm busy, right? And we put it to the side and we pretend it's not there. We think we'll keep going. And sometimes the emotion, whatever we're feeling, does subside on its own. Other times it grows. And we have made ourselves busy. So now we are not noticing it's growing until it's really big and really loud. And then it gets our attention, and then it's super hard to cope with by that point. So intervening early is really important. Like you also said, Kate, when we're at the level of rage, it's going to be really hard to do anything effective.
Yep.
Can you catch when you're irritated? Can you catch when you're annoyed? Can you catch when you're frustrated? Because that's the more milder end of anger. Can you catch when those things are beginning? And then try to, do some breathing, perhaps. Or do something physical with your body. Or, try to take a moment to see if you can figure out then what's going on. Because, you're not going to be able to think through what's behind this anger when you're at an 8, 9, or 10. It's just not going to happen. The other thing that I recommend that I think can be really important and helpful with anger is making sure that you're practicing your please skills. So, making sure that you are eating on a regular basis throughout your day, trying to get good quality sleep at night. I mean, the exercise part of please does also align with the intense exercise part of tip, because again, it's just helpful to move our bodies on some kind of regular basis. So really trying to look at, is any of the please stuff underlying why you're getting angry in the first place? And sometimes please stuff, it doesn't come up for a couple days. It might not be until you're like 3rd day of not sleeping well that then the emotion really makes itself known and it actually reaches a breaking point. It may be that, I think about like the mood altering substances one, the A. It may be something where it's like, if I have X number of drinks, I'm fine. Oh, but if I tip that scale and then I have a couple more, that's when I notice that then I'm much more vulnerable to getting angry. So some of this is a little bit of investigating on your part and seeing how please could be at play if you're not taking care of your physical body. because that can just really make us more prone to feeling any of our emotions on a bigger scale, especially anger, though. That definitely can be a factor. And then the last thing that I'll say is Kate and I, on our other podcast, The Couch and the Chair, we recorded an episode all about anger. I double checked. It's episode number 4. We recorded this quite a while ago, so I cannot remember everything we said in the episode. For both Kate and I, we struggle to let ourselves feel anger. And, you know, there are some people who anger is a really uncomfortable emotion for them to access. And there's some people where it feels like they are constantly in an angry state. Yep. So different people have different experiences with, I would say, any emotion. But in particular, anger can be one where some people are like, I never feel angry. And some people are like, I always feel angry, if we really simplify it down. And Kate and I tend to hang out more on the, we don't feel anger that often, or we don't express it that often. So, but I do think in that episode, we spend a decent amount of time talking about some helpful ideas for managing anger when it comes up really strongly. So you can search for The Couch and the Chair wherever, on whatever platform you're currently using to listen to this episode. And you can maybe take a listen to that episode number 4, all about anger, and maybe you'll find some helpful stuff there too.
I like it.
Yeah.
All right, on to the last one.
Yep.
This one says, I need some help with setting boundaries with a friend. I go on outdoor trips every couple weekends, and I invited him to ride with me since his car isn't suitable for the terrain. It's become a consistent thing that he's with me, which is fine, even though I wouldn't mind going alone sometimes. He offered gas money the first time, but I politely declined and said to just pay it forward since I was going anyway. I didn't expect at the time that he would constantly be coming with me. He's also gotten comfortable with just taking food out of my car or using my stuff without asking or just saying, I'm taking X. I keep boxes of granola bars in my car for emergency snacks, and now I feel the urge to hide them so he won't take them. He hasn't offered to replace them or pay gas since that one time. I don't know how to communicate that I'm uncomfortable with these things. Also, he makes a generous salary and can afford things like gas and granola bars. I don't know how to even bring this up and not be a complete dick about it, but I'm also starting to want to avoid hanging out with him. Any suggestions?
Yeah. When this listener posted this in the Facebook group, our Facebook community just, I don't know, came together really beautifully, I thought. And lots of people gave lots of different suggestions, ways to kind of start this conversation and different ideas. I think one person had an idea of like, would it feel better to like bring along another person, or like, I don't know. People just had lots of good food for thought. So I hope that some of that was helpful for this listener at this time. But I mean, you could take any situation here. And at the heart of this is when you're in this position where you're kind of feeling taken advantage of.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a common struggle in a lot of different contexts. So this is why it's really great to include this in a Q&A, because even if there are listeners who aren't struggling with this specific thing, there's principles that can apply here. So, I didn't even think about this, even though I've read this through a couple times. It didn't hit me until hearing you listen to it, or hearing you read it just now, Kate, while I was listening. There's a lot going on here.
Yup.
Because there's a few different things that are making this listener uncomfortable. There's a few different things that this listener is wanting, right? So we have the gas money issue. Okay, that's one. We have the taking the granola bars issue. That's 2, or like other things out of the car. Then we have this other issue, which I hadn't even picked up on before, which was I wouldn't mind going alone sometimes. That's 3.
Yep.
There are 3 different things going on here that this listener feels uncomfortable with. Kate's gonna name what DBT skill we recommend using. I won't name it. I won't give it away.
Oh, for gracious sake, you can take it. Just
you
take
want me
it,
to take
silly.
it?
You're talking first. It makes sense. Just go. It's
Okay.
silly not to respond first with it.
Use dear man. But here's the thing I'm realizing about that. You can't dear man all 3 of these at once.
Nope.
Pick one. pick a starting point. Pick the thing that most bothers you. Pick the thing you most want, whatever it is. And dear man, that as a starting point. And then maybe try to dear man or talk about the other things later. Or you might even realize, let's say, I'm pulling this out of thin air. I don't know what actually applies here. Let's say the granola bars are the thing that are bothering you the most. And you, dear man, telling your friend, hey, you know, either replace the granola bars if you're wanting to eat them, or please bring your own snacks, or whatever it is that you want with the granola bars issue. And if your friend hopefully has a positive response of like, oh, yeah, I could totally do that, you know, and they start doing it, you may find that then you don't really care about the gas money. And then you don't really care if, you know, they're coming along so frequently with you. Maybe those things will still bother you, in which case, again, have separate conversations about those things. But I'll speak from personal experience. I have had that sometimes with people where I'm like, these 5 things about this person are bothering me. Like, I'm annoyed about this, and this is driving me nuts. And I kind of have these different issues. When I can identify the one that is the biggest for me, and I talk about that one first, sometimes the others just shrink and go away. Again, not always, but sometimes that happens. So I think it'll be really important to identify. It all seems like the same issue because it's all with the same person, but there are multiple different things going on. So it's really important to identify which thing you want to talk about. The other thing that I think is going to be really helpful here, and this is in line with Dear Man, this is in line with the D, the first step, is having a soft opening. What I mean by that, because again, I could really speak from personal experience with this. I will sometimes struggle to voice things. So something will be happening for months and it's been bugging me and I haven't said a word. It is not that other person's fault that I haven't said anything yet. And sometimes it can be really helpful to name from the beginning that I know that I haven't said anything about this. This friend can't read your mind. They just can't. Nobody can. I wish. But it can be really helpful when you're opening up this conversation to say something like, you know, I recognize that some of this is on me because I haven't said anything to you about this. We've been going on these rides for X number of months that this has been going on. And, you know, this is the first time that I'm choosing to tell you about what's been on my mind. So I know that, like, if I don't tell you, you're not going to know. Like that's sort of an idea. Because sometimes, again, we can think people want to know and they don't, especially if you're picking the gas money as the issue to go with. Hey, I recognize that you did offer to pay the first time that we went on a trip together. And I did. I told you at that time that it was fine if you didn't pay. And I could totally understand why you might think that that meant I didn't think you ever needed to pay gas money. Yeah. Right. That this was just fine with me. Yep. Moving forward. I've actually come to realize after a couple months of us doing these trips together that I would like some gas money, you know, either every other time or, you know, whatever you decide it is that you want to request. But it can be helpful to sometimes own that, because if we go in really hard with people when we haven't said anything, and if you were to just start this off, which again, this would not be Dear Man, but if you were to just be like, hey, it's really been bothering me that you just keep coming along on these trips and you're eating my granola bars and not even thinking that I might want those, and you're not even really asking anymore, that's not going to go well. Like that's just not. It can be better to sort of say, hey, this is something that's been on my mind. I haven't said anything yet. Now it's time that I want to say something. And I know that you can't read my mind. So it can just be helpful to bring things up in that way. The other thing that I would say, again, if this listener is anything like me, conversations like this are intimidating and overwhelming and sometimes downright scary. It's scary when a status quo has been established and now you're trying to change it.
Yep.
That is hard stuff when it's like, it's been going this way for months. Or I have some friendships, it's been going this way for years. And now I'm going to say something. That's hard. So do this in the way that will feel comfortable to you. Are in-person conversations ideal? Yes, most of the time. But if it would feel better for you to dear man this over text or through a phone call, you can do that. Like, I think the biggest thing that I sense when I read this is it's just about saying something, right? Like the listener says, I don't even know how to bring this up. I don't care how you bring it up. Just bring it up. Just get the words out. So if there's a way for you to do that, that might feel more comfortable, you can always send a text and then say, let's touch base about this in person the next time we see each other, kind of a thing. Or we can talk about this more if you'd like when we're in person. I just wanted to let you know. So that's something to consider too. I don't know if I left anything for you to talk about, Kate.
I don't know if you left anything for me to talk about either, except you didn't, you talked about this, but you didn't name it as a skill. So yeah. I will go ahead and own that a lot of that sort of soft opening stuff, even the owning your own shit stuff, like a lot of that could be also considered within the realm of give.
Yeah, it's kind of validating the other person of like, right? I recognize that you probably haven't known that this is something that's been bothering me because I haven't expressed it to you.
Yep. Right. And so right, the being easygoing, right, all of these other things. I really heard this person's, I don't know how to do this without being a complete dick. Right. And so I think of give when I think about how to go for a non-dick delivery. Right. It's not. And I think the owning your own part also helps, right, with it not being a dick delivery. It's, if you just launch into, like you were talking about, Michelle, like, oh my God, it's been months and you've been doing all these terrible things, then probably that's going to feel a bit dickish on both of your parts. And also, if you can be a little bit more gentle and easygoing with it and validating, you have a lot, I think, more likely chance of having it come across pleasantly and having a good, comfortable, friendly dialogue about it. Mm-hmm. But otherwise, yep, dear man, be open about stuff and give, and that's about what I would say. Though here's funny, I don't think it actually matters, but I just like it when you and I actually have opposite thoughts. I would have said, like, maybe to start with the thing that felt easiest to tackle rather than the most important.
After
listening to you, I totally get the reasoning of maybe that will make the other one seem less hefty, because sometimes it's an accumulation of things, and if you take the biggest block out of the castle, it can kind of collapse a bit. And also, my first thought was, like, work your way up to the more difficult feeling ones.
I think both have their merits, so yeah, good point.
But otherwise, I'm just on board with everything you said.
Yeah. I'm also realizing, too, hearing you talk about, right, like, adding in the give to the dear man. Yeah. I haven't ever really thought about it this way, but I touched on it a few times today when we're talking about dear man. The D is really important.
Yep.
How you describe things is important. And again, dear man really emphasizes that part needs to be factual.
Yes.
That needs to be, we've been going on these outdoor trips for X number of months. And this is what I've been noticing, that when we go on these trips, you
don't pay for gas, you eat my snacks, you whatever, which one you're tackling.
Yep, exactly. And also, it's such a good point, though, that that's a part where you really can add in and own. Some people might argue, oh, that's creeping into the E a little bit. But I think it's really part of the describe to be like, I haven't said anything about this yet. That's true. That's factually true. I haven't said anything about this yet. And so, you know, that kind of a thing. I think it's okay to really make sure that how you're describing things is done in such a way that it is factual and also can acknowledge the other person's potential experience too. If it makes sense to include that, I think there's totally space for that within the Dear Man framework.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, doing Dear Man in a give-ish fashion as opposed to doing Dear Man in a fast-ish fashion.
Right. Yeah, totally.
Which I guess, you know, if the conversation goes poorly, you might end up in fast.
Yeah. Yep. And even then, you're not being a dick.
Nope.
Right?
You're not being a dick if they're like, well, but I don't know. I can't even imagine someone being like,
I'm going to keep eating your granola bars and not bring my own snacks or not ask you if it's okay.
Right?
Okay.
But, you know, whatever. All right. I think that wraps us up for today. Oh, but you are wrapping us up for today.
I am wrapping us up. So all I'm going to say is send us emails at dbtandmepodcast@gmail.com. And we're going to do our best to keep working through these Q&As for you guys and keep them coming. All right. So thanks for being here today.
Talk to you guys in Q&A 25.
All right. Bye, guys.
To learn more about us and the DBT skills we're teaching each week, join our Facebook group. Simply log in to your Facebook profile and search for DBT and